Good afternoon and welcome to another video in the Artful Coder PHP series. Today we're going to talk about exceptions now and try catches and how you handle them. So what is an exception? Exception can occur anywhere. You might have something that's a null reference exception if you try to access a variable before being declared in certain languages. You might want to throw your own exceptions. There might be a data access exception. There's a whole host of them. But in this video, we're going to focus on just handling basic exceptions. We may expand that out. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new folder up here. So we're going to click on that. We're going to minus that out. I'm going to click on the site and we're going to add new folder, not in classes, escape. I'm trying to click up there. Sorry, but let's click in there. That's it. That's a better idea. And then do exceptions. And within that, we want a new file. And let's call this car not MOT exception .php. Okay, so let's define our exception and say public class car not MOT exception, and it has to implement exception. No, exception. Let's just style. Oh, public class. Okay, it doesn't like that. So why does it not like? Oh, sorry. Extends exception. So that's me in a different language. Okay, so why does it not like that? Let's have a look. End of file. Extends exception. Okay, it's not extends. So let's just save that. Okay. Okay, so we've got an exception. Let's just go back up here. Oh, of course, they don't have public modifiers. So we'll just say class. Let's just see if we can get this to save, which we can. Extends exception. Okay, so that's our exception created. So then what we need to do as well, we'll create a new file in here, new file called exceptions. And we're just going to build on interfaces. So what we'll do is we'll just copy this across. We've got a car there. Let's just borrow this for time. No, escape. Right. What we're going to do is if we just save that, and we're also going to need to bring in our exception. It has to be before our classes. Exceptions slash car. There you go. So if we just run this file up, so if we go to here, type exceptions, PHP. There you go, same as before. But now in our car, we want, let's create a new function we could do this in the interface as well. So you could have a function called a car must have public function days till MOT. And in here we're going to pass in an int of dollar days till MOT. And that's going to return, let's say, okay, let's go with days till MOT, and what that's going to return is a bool. I'll just copy that in there. Okay, done. So if we go to a car now, we have a property called, it's going to do something. It's going to do something. It is going to do something. So we'll have a function. Let's just copy this out. Go to our, oh, copy that out. Go to a car. Drop that in there. Take that like that. Right. So days till MOT, we're going to pass that in. But what we want to say is, let's just say we have, you can't book, if they've gotten 0 days MOT, we want to, or less than 2, we want to say not MOT. It's a bit funny. So if you're trying to handle exceptions, you need to start with a try and then a catch. Now with exceptions, you can throw a default one. So for example, I could do catch exception $E, and we could just do that. And what we could do is we could just simply message out, we've got a logger here, we could just simply message out dollar this uh, oh dash log and say error generic exception occurred. Message is colon e dash get message. Okay, so what do you think is going to happen if we do that? Nothing. So that is valid. That is valid. So, and what you've got to remember is order of priority. So, if we throw a general exception or the base exception, that has to be after any custom exception. So here's what we're going to do. Let's put another catch in here and say, let's just borrow this and go to exception, back to car. And we'll just put that in there and say $EX. So what do we want it to do when we catch this not exception? Do we want to log it? So we could say, put a log in here. It allows you to be different with your error handling. So let's say car not MOT. And we'll put message is that and do dollar $E get message. Okay. Let's add a new property. Okay, so days till MOT. This is to say, let's change this. Let's say is not days to. Let's leave it as this. I'm trying to get it this way. And then what you also have the option to do is to throw throw this exception back up the pipeline. Else, what will happen is if you do something here, it might log it here, but if you want to pass it back up the thread to the outer call, so back within here, you could have a try catch around the method and then render the method message. So what you could do is you could say as part of this, throw $E. And that will throw the exception back up the calling chain. So that will come back up to here. And if we say, for example, here, $car dash days, let's go to car a minute, days till MOT, and go to exceptions to that, and let's just say 0. That should just work. We won't get any exceptions because we're not throwing it. Boolean, okay. So let's say, let's just take the boolean off, it's confusing. So this is just a way you can do it. So let's go back to our car interface and let's say nothing. We're not going to return anything from it. If we go to a car, take that off, it's just example showing a boolean. Okay, so simplify that. There you go. So what do we want to happen? Let's suppose there is 20 days. So let's just say we're going to throw an exception, else we're going to continue on. This is just to show you how to do this. So we don't want to throw the exception further back at the pipeline. We just want to log it at this stage with a DB logger. So in a previous video, we talked about dependency injection where we swapped out the log with a DB logger. This may become our way we communicate to the database. So what I want to say is if days till MOT is greater than 30, because you have to have roughly 30 days. So if the days till MOT is, what we want to do is we want to say days to exception, days till, and we're going to throw an exception. So what we're going to do is throw new car not MOT exception. And let's see what we get. If we go into this, we're going to put a message in there if this allows this. And it can get the message of the exception. Car MOT has expired. Okay, so I'm going to pass a message in. Else, what we want to do is continue with our logic. So what's going to happen is we're just going to return this bit here. So we're going to return that. There's no problem so far. Part implements exception, which has a message in it. That's fine. So at this stage, we've got a valid. If the days are greater than 30, we're going to have an exception. But then what we're going to do is say this dot logger dash log car can car MOT not expired. Let's just give that a go. So if we just refresh this, car MOT not expired. But if we pass in here into our file that it is 50 days, what happens? There you go. So that is a very simple explanation of exception handling. Now there is one other part to mention to this, and it's very important in certain places where you need to. So what may happen is you may declare a database connection in a repository. So for example, you might say dbh equals new PDO Okay, let's tell you what we'll do. We'll create a base variable. Let's just create a new base variable here for D. Let's do it at dbh. Let's just do it here and see if this works. So dbh equals new PDO. I just got to remember what they are. I think it's something like MySQL host equals, we'll just put test, and then we say db name equals test, and then we'll say a user and a password. So if supposing an error occurs mid-flow, so let's just do stmt equals dbh dash prepare, and this is just going to be select at mot status rom cars, and we'll just, let's say, where id equals id, and then what we're going to do is say stmt find value, and we're going to do this. We're going to say, let's do that. ID dollar. We'll just say 4 in here, and then we're going to do this and do PDO param int. Right. Supposing it creates an exception. Okay. So cute. Okay, we're not going to pass it into that. But supposing there's an error here. This isn't going to work because at the moment, because we're not doing certain things, but this is what we do with a bit of db. I may have this wrong, it may be host, there may be other things restrict. But supposing it gets mid-flow and you've opened a database, a connection to the database. So what do you want it to do if that fails? Yes, you could do it in the catch, but that's not the proper way. So you have something called a finally. And you do finally, if I can spell that right, so fine. And we just want to null out our dbh equals null. So once we've handled the exceptions, we then finally want to basically close off our connection to the database. So let's just do file save, do that. Didn't get executed because we're not, it's, what is it, 50? Didn't throw an error even though technically, let's have a look, over 50 days. Okay, let's change it. Let's actually try and get in the execution flow. It's my fault. Let's just say 5 and we go back. Could not find driver. This is just, but this is what that's demonstrated. If there's a problem with the method here, if you could not find the driver example and things like that, and there's all this here and that, and it causes a problem, you could then say, well, if it's tried to create a connection, I just want to say, well, I want to basically null it out. And that's kind of what exceptions are. So you can throw your own custom ones. So as a recap, we covered basic exception handling, and you can throw it back up the pipe as well. And we also include the finally block. So an example of this might be, another example, just to recap quickly, is if you've opened a file up for reading, for example, you're reading a file and you've got some JSON on your server, that will stay open unless the file connection is closed. So you can use the finally to say, well, this is what I'm going to do after I've handled all my exceptions. You can say, well, actually, I want to close that connection down. So it's like a fail safe of it. And that's how you do that to then handle stuff like that. But yeah, so this was just a simple delve, a bit of a video on exceptions. We showed how to create our own custom exception. We then use data, which you may have validation exceptions. Yes, days MOT, it's not the right terminology, I do apologise, but we just said that if the days is greater than 30, we throw an exception which is captured down here. We don't want to throw it back at the pipeline. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. You just want a log, you may want to return a status message and all of that as well. So that is it. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video.